Okay, I think the recording has started. So a warm welcome to you. I know outside it may not be warm, but a warm welcome to you here inside. My name is Tepo. I'm one of your lecturers. Hopefully you know that by now, but if it's your first lecture, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the class. Some students, we only meet just before the exam. It's the first time, so could be some of you are even new today. Let me share. Okay, my system is a bit slow today, so you are going to need to bear with me. You would have received this document in the announcements and also in your My Life emails. It has the suggested solution, today's link, and then there are instructions if you want a remark. So if you want a remark, then be sure to follow these instructions. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the solution today. Okay, so let us get into it. This was your paper on the 21st of July. As soon as you get your paper, the first thing that we expect you to do is your time management. Now, this paper was from 8:30 all the way to 11:15, and we'll talk about also how it wasn't, but it was from 8:30 to 11:15, and your reading time was until 8:45. So when you download this paper during this reading time, you must also do your time allocation during this reading time. So you know that you are supposed to start at 8:45. So your time allocation should then be looking like this. You know, at 8:45, you are starting question 1. Let me make this a different color. Let me make it red. At 8:45, you're then starting question 1, and that should be taking you to 22 minutes, which means you should finish question 1 at 9:07. Yeah. Then you should be finishing question 2 at 9:11. You should then be finishing question 3 9:44. You should then be finishing question 4. 10:02. Question 5, you're finishing 10:18. Question 6, 10:36. In question 7, 10:46. So yeah, it means I've made an error by 1 minute there, because you're supposed to finish at 10:45. That's when you're supposed to be finished. So somewhere in this, I've made a 1 minute error, but basically by 10:45, you should be finished. You must stick to your time, okay? This is your best chance of becoming a CA. You must stick to your time. Third year, CTA, IAC, calculate your times and stick to those times. Please do that for yourself. Please, please, please. Now, on the day, there was an issue, right? You were writing, and then as soon as you tried to log in to the Invigilator app at 8:45, you would have calculated all of this before 8:45, which is during your reading time. Between 8:30 and 8:45, you'd have calculated this, and that's the time we give you to read the instructions. And obviously, you're given the instructions beforehand. So if you read the instructions, there's no need to read them again on your paper. And then right by 8:45 is when you must be logging in, right? And on the day, okay, the Invigilator app had been incorrectly configured, unfortunately, and therefore would not allow you to log in when you try to log in at 8:45. Now, obviously, that would have caused you panic, and that is why we'd also extended the time by 30 minutes. And when you find out that you cannot log in and you probably are trying for 10, 20 minutes, you're probably trying to log in, not knowing what is going on. I don't remember what the limit is. If you know what the limit is in terms of how long you have to log into the Invigilator, I think it's 20 minutes after 8:45. I'm not sure, but those of you who are sure, just say in the chat box there. But you only have about 20 minutes from the start time of the assessment, the 8:45. From the 8:45, I think you only have about 20 minutes. And you probably would have spent most of your 20 minutes doing all of that, trying to log in, and therefore you would have lost time on question 1, okay? Now remember, like I'm saying, you must be sticking to your time. So when you're panicked and when you're trying to log in and you see that it doesn't work, some of you were emailing us, asking us if you still carry on writing and all of that stuff. Yes, you must always write your paper under all circumstances. You must always write your paper. Now, if I was you, okay, I would have obviously been very panicked that I can't log in and having lots of issues. And I would have probably recalculated these times, because now you have about 20 minutes less, right? I probably would have actually gone straight into question 2 and started off from question 2 to be able to finish on time. And very important, like I'm saying, either you're going to recalculate or you're going to stick to your time frame. But either way, you must have a plan. You cannot just assume that you're going to finish the paper. So let's say that you've now wasted time, obviously because you didn't know that there's a configuration issue with the Invigilator app, and it is now 9:30, and that's now when you're starting your paper. So let's use a different color. So now you from 8:45 all the way to 9:30, you've been trying to log in, sending emails, just very, very panicked. And at 9:30, you decide, oh, now I'm going to start because I can't, obviously we're getting hundreds of emails. So we couldn't respond to all the emails at that time. So you probably don't even have a response from your lecturers at that time. But you must start the paper, and it's now 9:30. Yeah. That means you're going to recalculate. Okay? Either you're going to recalculate your times or you're going to stick to your times. So if it's 9:30, it means that you're supposed to finish this question by 9:44. So either if you're sticking to your red times, the times that you were supposed to use, then it means you are starting with question 3 and you will finish it in 14 minutes. Okay. And that's if you're starting at, that's if you are starting at 9:30, but you want to stick to times. So then it means you're starting at 9:30, and then this question, you must be done by 9:44. This question, you must still be done by 10:02. You must still be done by 10:18. You must still be done by 10:36. You must still be done by 10:45 or 10:46 here. Okay. Now you're done. It's 10:46. You have not done question 1. You have not done question 2, and you probably have only done partial question 3 because you didn't have the time. But now it's time to submit. As soon as you log in to submit, that's probably the first time, because we loaded it on the submission portal. That's probably the first time that you see that you actually have more time, because now you're trying to submit and you see that you actually have more time. And that's when you go back to question 1, question 2. Okay. In this scenario, you've stuck to your time, you're about to submit. You find out as soon as you're submitting there on the submission portal, we highlighted in green for you to say you've been given extra time. That's when you go back to question 1 and question 2, based on that extra time. Okay. The alternative, okay, the other alternative is that then you recalculate your time as at 9:30. So I'm going to use another color. You may not see it that well. Let me use black. Now, let's say this is now if you're recalculating from 9:30. So, from 9:30. So now you're going to start at 9:30. You're starting your paper, which means you're going to be done 9:22 for question 1. How is it doing this? 9:22 for question, no, sorry, you're starting at 9:30, so you are going to be done at 9:52 for question 1. You're going to be done at 9:56 for question 2. You're going to be done you are going to be done at 10. What is that? 38. $28. You're going to be done at 10:28 for question 3. You are going to be done at 10:46 for question 4. Okay, and that means that's when you are, is this right? 9:30 to 10:28, 10:46. Yeah, so this is when you are going to be done, because it's already now time to submit at 10:46. As soon as you go and submit, you'll see you have extra time, and that's when you carry on with question 5, 6, and 7. But either way, you must have times and you must stick to your times, because it doesn't get any easier from now. In CTA, you have more time pressure, and at IAC, you definitely have time pressure. So you must stick to your times. I hope you get what the expectation is, because things can always happen. Even at qualifying exams, there have been issues where people's laptops had to be restarted and they lost hours, and SACA had to give them, the hours that they lost and all of that. So these things do happen. You must just roll with them, and you must just follow the plan. okay? You were given an extra 30 minutes from the moderation of the paper. Most of the students finished. There was really there was more people that didn't finish test 2 than what didn't finish test 3. So it didn't seem like you had issues with time management. But remember, with regards to a normal paper where you're not given extra time, stick to your time. All right, let's now get into the actual paper. Yeah. Okay, so time management is very important, becomes very important at a third year level. As you know by now, you're starting off at the required. Okay. You're reading your required the first time to understand what's expected of you, and then secondly, you're reading it again for more meaning. You then, when you read it the second time, you're looking for what's in bold, what's underlined, what's in italics, what's in capital letters, what's being said. Please note what's being said about NB. It's when you read the second time, you're now paying attention to every single highlighted word and what that means for you when you read it the second time. Okay. So as you can see, you have 7 questions. Now, as we go along, please raise your hand if you have a question about anything. I deal with it right then and there. Tutorial 104 is all about substantive procedures. So I want to get to the substantive procedure questions first, and deal with all your questions about substantive procedures. And then hopefully there's time, we'll see. I mean, if there's not that many questions, then there's no issue. But if there's a lot of questions on substantive procedures, I want to deal with all of them. And then we'll come back to question 7 and question 1. Remember, question 7 and question 1 were the 2 questions where you knew were going to come out. So you knew lesson 3 was going to come out, and you knew ethics was going to come out. So I don't expect students to have had issues with those questions because you knew they were coming. The only new questions were really questions 2 to 6. And that's what Tutorial Letter 104 is about. So that's what I'm going to concentrate on. And for as long as there's time before 10, then I'll also deal with question 1 and question 7. So I'm going to start off then with question 2. Question 2 said, based on the extracts on the audit planning work papers, explain whether it would be appropriate to use substantive analytical procedures in the testing of revenue for Robo. Now, let me open the tutorial letter. Those of you who may not remember the circumstances under which analytical procedures are okay. So we tell you when analytical procedures work. It is when you're able to compare. Okay? So there must be an ability to compare, or whether or when there's relationships, right? In terms of relationships, we mean things like, if you think of when you have sales can be based on price times what number of goods sold. So then there's a relationship between sales and the price and number of goods sold. So you can estimate a sales price by finding out how much has moved from inventory to be sold, and based on the average price, you can try and do an analytical that compares. When we talk about comparisons, you've seen comparisons monthly, comparisons year on year, comparison to budget. Those things must be comparable. Okay. There are issues if you cannot have comparability and if you don't have the related relationships, then it becomes more difficult to use analytical procedures. And that's kind of what happened in the scenario. We're told that you were told that there are these divisions, there's RoboCreate and RoboFun, and you were told that RoboFun exports customized made to order robots. And if you're customizing your robot, it's much harder to compare year-on-year revenue, because 1 year you have a big order from the US, the next year you have a smaller order, or you have lots of smaller orders in the following year. So customized made to order, it's a bit more difficult. But for example, if you're going to compare what was the budgeted revenue for the year and versus actual revenue, every company then has a budget, so you can compare. It's also harder to compare month to month with regards to customized or made to order. If you're selling, for example, RoboFun is selling to retailers, and then you might have a similar amount that you sell every month, then month to month could make sense. But when you have customized industrial sales, then month to month it's not going to make sense. Year to year is also not going to make sense. So for the most part, we expected you to be able to identify that the revenue here is not predictable for RoboCreate. It's customized, and therefore analytical procedures would not be the best in this for RoboCreate. It could be possible for RoboFun. So you can see the memo catered for both answers, but we really expected the answer that no, analytical procedures would not be best to use. Any questions on the analytical procedure question? Okay, let's get to the big guns. Oh no, there is a question. Vuyokazi, you can go ahead.
Morning, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask about the marking. Was it the one mark for saying why it's not suitable, and then the mark for the fact that you said no, or like how are the marks spread?
So yes, the first mark was for saying yes, it is not suitable. And then the second mark was for giving any one of these reasons for why. So dealing either with comparability or with the relationships, any one. So it's the mark is for non-applicable and then the reason. But if you give a wrong reason, then we can't give you the mark for saying no. So the reason goes together with your conclusion. So no, because blah, blah, blah. If your reason is wrong, we can't give you the mark for the no. And then with the yes, it's only yes if you're able to show us how it can be comparable. Okay. So if you said yes, it is comparable, but you gave an incorrect reason for that. Some students said, yes, substantive analytical procedures are applicable because you must always use them. That's obviously incorrect. So then in that case, you're not getting any of the marks.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, sir. And then, sorry, another question. For questions like this, do we only focus on what's happening internally? Like, for example, we can't compare our revenue because of the nature of the product. Or can I speak about external factors like how maybe there's tariffs now for this year, so comparing previous figures to this year's figures will be different because
right? Because remember, if you number one, RoboFun was established in 2024. Robo diversified its operations. So RoboFund was only established in the current financial year. So for that, you can't even do that one. So did you be specific as to what you were speaking about? Because also the students tended to kind of think revenue is just revenue. There was no differentiation between the fact that you had divisions, and that will also impact your answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. No, I see where I went wrong. Thank you so much, sir.
Great. Now let's get to the big guns. A whole, what is that, 16 marks. Question 3. Now, question 3 said to you, provide the tests of details that you would perform to address the accuracy of revenue. So now we've read it once. Now we're going to read it again for the second time, but we're reading with more meaning now. We're looking at what's underlined, what's bold, everything that should be noted, anything that's in italics, blah, blah, blah. So we read it again. Provide the tests of details. Now it says tests of details. Sometimes in your questions, you see the word provide the substantive procedures. What is the difference if I've asked you tests of details as opposed to if I've asked you provide the substantive procedures? Who can tell me what is the difference in those two questions? What is the difference if you're being asked formulate substantive procedures versus formulate tests of details? What would be the difference between those two questions? Lunga, you can go ahead.
Hello, sir. I
Hi.
think when the question is specific about the test of details, then it means that we should not include analytical procedures.
Well done.
Our answers.
Well done. That's it. That's exactly what it means. If we go back to our tutorial letter, we know that substantive procedures have two categories, right? Tests of details or substantive analytical procedures. So if you are asked substantive procedures, it means you can give us tests of details and you can give us analytical procedures in your answer. But if you are only asked tests of details, it means you cannot give any analyticals. So for questions 3 and question 4 and question 5, we still had students giving us analytical procedures. So that showed us that they don't understand that this question is not saying provide the substantive procedures. So that's something that you wouldn't do if you're reading the second time, because when you're reading the second time, you're looking for detail. And this detail is saying tests of details. It's not saying substantive procedure. So it's incorrect exam technique if you've given us analytical procedures because you didn't read the question properly. Okay. Provide the test of details that you perform to address the accuracy of revenue. Okay. So now we know we must only address accuracy. We had a lot of students addressing other assertions. And I'm thinking it's probably because you saw how many marks there are. And you probably thought, oh, let's deal with all our revenue. But if you read it the second time and you read it properly, you would have seen that it's specific to accuracy of revenue. Now, as a teacher, as an educator, I'm framework-based. I have given you a framework for answering substantive procedure questions. I do not believe in a guessing game. And yeah, guessing game can help. You can pass with guessing games, that's fine. But when you have a framework, then you don't miss anything. Okay. So based on the previous lectures that we've had, tell me what is your framework, or maybe if I say what is the structure that you follow for a substantive procedure question. And by this, I mean any question, whether it's in the question bank or whether it's the exam or whether in this case it's the test. What is your expected structure of your answer for any substantive procedure that requires you to apply yourself? Theoretical, questions, but the questions that we give you in the assessment, and the questions that are, most of your questions in the question bank. Whenever to apply yourself, what is the framework, or what is the structure that you use for substantive procedures? Now you have been taught this, so please give it a try. What is going through your mind? Okay. Wipilo, you can go ahead.
You start with the general procedures.
Well done. So in 1 to 2 frameworks, we talk about general procedures, and then what next? Let me change colors. Yeah, we'll start with red. Okay, so your framework says general procedures, and that's from lesson 8. What else is in your framework? Excuse me. Lunga, what else is in your framework?
So I think it's the how, what, and why questions. So it's the general procedures, and then what else? What are we examining in terms of which assertion or which account, and then the why question would answer the accuracy in terms of the assertions.
Okay, so before we get there, right, you are now in the detail, okay? So before the detail, you kind of need the bigger picture, which is the overall framework, and then the detail. The detail of it is then when you're going to need to deal with the how and the what. That's when you're going to need to deal with the detail. So before we've even gotten to the detail, okay, Josephine, do you want to give it a try?
Yes, good morning, sir. I think we'll go to the business procedures.
Yes, your business process procedures, and that's from lesson 9.
Lesson 9, yeah.
And then what happens after that, Josephine? What happens after your business process procedures?
Yeah, I'm not sure after that.
Well, we just follow the tutorial later. Then you deal with your other considerations. In other words, you are wondering, is there an expert involved? Is there estimate involved? Is there related parties involved? Okay, so these are the things that tell you, these are the sort of the areas where the marks will be, these are the different areas where the marks will be, okay? Now, this is framework 1. There's another framework, right? What happens if you're auditing a document? What was the framework for that one? If you're auditing a document, what would you use for auditing a document? Okay, seems like some of you have forgotten. Okay, could be, I'll say and or your DAD principles, right? This is where you're focusing on, dates, amounts, and descriptions. So these are the 2 frameworks that I have taught you for dealing with substantive procedures. these are some payment procedures where you're having to apply yourself. So these don't change, okay? You're applying your lesson 8, your general procedures, you're applying your business process procedures, and then you're applying your other considerations. That is the framework. And the students that do well, in other words, when you're getting distinction level and almost full marks, it's the students that are following frameworks. Why? Because if you don't follow a framework, you tend to forget some things. And this, if most of the students, their answers are either missing a chunk of, this being either lesson 10, or they're missing general procedures. Most of the students that have not done well in this question, most of the students that have failed this particular question, they either missed other considerations or they missed general procedures. They went into, oh, it's revenue, so you must agree to invoices. Okay. Okay. So that's the bigger picture. That's what we, this is before you go into the detail, right? So it helps you to score marks because you know, oh, I must deal with general procedures, oh, I must deal with business procedures, then I must deal with other considerations. Yeah. Now, if you look at this required, it says test of details to address the accuracy. Okay. So you must immediately be starting to think, ooh, where are my marks coming from? Because I have general procedures, that can give me marks for in terms of accuracy. Business process procedures for accuracy. For accuracy, generally, you're recalculating or you're agreeing some of the amounts, anything that makes up the amount that you're looking at, you're agreeing to supporting documentation. So if you're reading this question at this point, you may not really know where the marks are going to come from because it seems like that's a bit too many marks for accuracy at this point. So this is before you've even looked at the scenario, okay? So if I was reading this at this point, I would be expecting, oh, maybe there's related parties here, or maybe there's estimates, or maybe there's experts. You haven't looked at the scenario yet, and you'll see for this question, none of those were applicable, but you don't know that at this point. At this point, you're still trying to figure out what could be 15 marks. But now you are going to go and look in the scenario, what could be 15 marks. So you're going to go look, oh, is there an expert? Is there an estimate? Are there related parties? Okay, how am I going to get to 15 marks? So if I was reading this question, I'd almost be worried at this point, how am I supposed to get to 15 marks? Because general procedures alone and, recalculating and agreeing the amounts that whatever makes up the revenue amount to a source document, that can't be more than 6 or 7 marks. So I'd kind of be worried, where am I going to get the remaining marks from? And now you're going to the scenario, okay? Because the scenario must now answer this question for you. So you're not just going into the scenario blind. You're going into it looking for where are all these marks? Because right now, I'm not seeing all these marks. If you were saying, provide tests of details that you would perform to address revenue, then suddenly all these marks would make sense because now you must address all assertions. But we only said accuracy. So now where must these marks come from? You're going to look in the scenario where these marks would come from. Remember in the test prep class, I say to you, you must, the scenario is your friend. That's what's going to help you pass. Okay, it's designed to help you pass. Even if you think it's designed the opposite way, it's actually designed to help you pass. Okay, so let's go. We're now going to read. Below is a schedule of transactions for the month of April 2025. The amounts reflected are indicative of the revenue transactions that occurred during the year. It tells you on the 1st of April, you have an amount that's carried forward from 31 March. On the 5th of April, robot toy sales were invoiced to SA retailer, 85,000. On April the 10th, you sold a robot that was manufactured in terms of a contract, 19 million. Robot maintenance, 95,000. 26 sales return per credit note, 340,000. April 30, general entry adjustment to revenue, 1.58 million. Now, whenever you're reading a substantive procedure question where you asked for substantive procedures, it's good that you highlight for yourself everywhere that you see a source document. So you've been told that there's an invoice there. You've been told there's a contract there. Maintenance, you've been told there's also a contract for the maintenance. You're being told there is a credit note there. And then you're told there is, oh, this is also an invoice. Yeah, that's the invoice. Then journal entry adjustment, you're not really told what that is based on. It's just you see that there is a journal entry. Okay, so you already know in a substantive procedure question, you must use all the source documents that are given to you. Okay, find a way to use all those source documents. Right. With this question, you were asked to audit the accuracy of revenue. So your revenue is 445 million. Shouldn't highlight, it's not a source document. Your revenue is 445 million. So some of the answers we were getting were things like just agree the 445 million to invoices and you calculate the 445 million. Now that's only two things. Yeah, you have 15 marks. Okay, you said you're going to start with general procedures. Then you said you're going to go with your business process procedures. Then you said you're going to deal with other considerations. We have now seen, because we've read the whole question now, that there's no expert here, there's no estimate here, and there's no related parties here. So that means lesson 10 is out. We're now left with general procedures, lesson 8, and then business process procedures. There's only so many general procedures. I've gone through general procedures enough by now. So you know there's only so many. There's not that many general procedures. That means your answers have to come from the business process. Yeah, has to be lesson 9 related procedures. When we're talking about this 445 million, we know that it's made up of amounts from, 1 May 2024 all the way to, I'll write it here. Our revenue amount would have started from 1 May 2024 and now it goes all the way to 30 April 2025. Okay, but if you look at this, you're basically only given April. Okay, so it's hard for you to audit the entire year if you haven't been given the entire year. Yeah? So we told you here the amounts affected are indicative of revenue transactions that occurred during the year. So obviously you don't have all the transactions for the year, but you do know the transactions for the year kind of look like what the transactions for April look like. So then you can address revenue for the year by saying what you would do for the toy sales that are invoiced. What would you do for robots that are manufactured? What would you do for robot maintenance? What would you do for sales returns? What would you do for journal entries? You know, in any case, if you can order a journal entry in April, you know how to order a journal entry any other month. So you can order the credit note in April, you know how to order the credit note any other month. So these transactions are indicative of transactions for the year. If you can order these transactions, you can audit, you know, all the other months. Yeah. So we are now kind of getting a picture of where 15 marks could come from, because we started with our general procedures. Now we must say how did our toy sales that we invoice, how would we audit the robots that are manufactured, how would we audit, and I say audit, test the accuracy of, what I mean, of the maintenance, how would we test the accuracy of sales returns, how would we test the accuracy of journal entries. So for every single amount here, how would we test the accuracy of it? Because by testing the accuracy of the amounts that make up the 45 million, we are then addressing the accuracy of the 445 million. So I hope that makes sense as to what was expected of you. Because for some reason, students did not deal with every single line here, the accuracy of every single line. And a lot of students on this question just didn't have enough procedures, and that's because of your understanding of this question. Yeah. 85 general procedures. Obviously, you're going to go and you're going to obtain a schedule of transactions for the year, because this is only for April. You're going to obtain a schedule for the year that agrees to this 445 million. Okay? You're going to recalculate that schedule that you received. And like I said, you're going to agree it to this 445 million, you're going to agree it to the TB, the GL, and the financial statements. You're going to obtain a written representation from management regarding the accuracy of revenue. What's important? Accuracy of revenue. Why? Because that was the question. So obtain written representation alone is not a mark. Okay. Obtain a written representation for revenue, that's not fully correct. Obtain a written representation with regards to the accuracy of revenue, that's correct. And that's what we expect to see. Yeah? So there's only so much in terms of general procedures. Then you're getting to your business process specific procedures. Here's what's happened. So you must deal with this scenario with what has happened in this scenario. So this 85 million, you would recalculate it. You need to recalculate it. And the recalculation, according to this, it's based on set prices for each toy robot. So you would recalculate the price times the quantity for the invoice. Okay. Also, remember that this 85,000 is based on A, price, okay, B, quantity. So 85,000 is A times B is equal to 85,000. Okay. The way you deal with anything like this is that you then recalculate A times B. You must recalculate A times B. But because you're relying on A and B as amounts, you must also verify A and B. Okay. So you must verify that the amounts on the invoices agree to the set prices. And then you must verify that the quantity that's on the invoice agrees to what's being delivered to the client. And what source document do you use for that? The delivery note. Yeah. So those are the procedures we expected you to do for the 85,000. The 19 million. You can see there the 19 million is as per the contract. So you must agree the 19 million to the contract. You can robot maintenance. Robot maintenance is here's 95,000. you are told that it's based on the contractual rate per hour. So it is another situation where it's A times B is equal to 95,000. A is the rate per hour, so you must agree that to something. B is the number of hours, and C is then the answer 95,000. So you have to recalculate C, which is 95,000, but then you also have to agree the inputs that result in the 99,000, which is a contract rate. What you're going to agree to? Well, it's in the answer, contract. You must agree to the contract. And then per hour, how many hours were used in this maintenance? You need to post the maintenance records. Whatever source document you use, we're a bit lenient there because we didn't tell you that there's maintenance records. So whatever source documents to agree the hour, the number of hours spent, we would be happy with, as long as it's a reasonable source document to use. Sales return per credit note, 340,000. You need to recalculate it, and then you need to agree it, obviously, to the credit note and to the original invoice. General entry adjustment to revenue, 1.5 million. You're not giving any information as to what this is. So that's the first thing you need to do. You need to ask management, what is this? You need to understand the nature of this adjustment before you can evaluate whether it's been accurately calculated. And then you'll also recalculate the adjustment. So that's where your marks came from, okay? This question really required you to apply yourself, that you focus on what's in front of you, focus on the scenario. Any questions regarding question 3? Okay. Lynette, you can go ahead. You can unmute, Lynette.
Hi, morning.
Hi.
Tommy, I would like to know for this specific question, does the fact that you say that you looked at the dates and that the dates is all within the financial year, is that more to do with cutoff than accuracy?
Correct. It's more to do with cutoff and you are asked accuracy.
Okay. And obtain delivery notes and look at the delivery notes and the dates when it was delivered, that's also more for cutoff.
Exactly.
Okay, and then I think that was...
When you're dealing with accuracy, you know, a lot of times it will be recalculations, okay? And then sometimes the recalculations are based on inputs, right? A times B equals C, or A plus B plus C plus D. So you need to ensure that your inputs are also correct. So then you need to agree your inputs as well. Agree something for A, agree something for B. So that's where a lot of your marks come from, with the recalculation and the agreeing of the inputs for the accuracy assertion.
And then the specific goods that was invoiced, is it correct in this specific scenario for accuracy that you say that the goods is actually the goods that was sold by the company?
That doesn't affect accuracy, right? Right? You're talking about occurrence there.
Is that so? When I say look at the invoice and ensure that the product that was invoiced is actually a product that is sold by the company, is that more than not for accuracy, because then you invoice the incorrect goods?
No,
or there's an invoice that's not even for goods that's sold by the company?
Yeah, that's occurrence. They're addressing occurrence. So we are addressing accuracy. Is this amount, is 85,000? Should it be 95 or should it be 75? That's what we're addressing.
Yes, I had all of those. I just had some of these in between. I don't have my mark script yet, so I'm just trying to figure out where I got my marks from.
So when it's 85, should it be 95? Should it be 75, right? That's what we are looking at. Whether you sold the incorrect goods, all of that stuff, that doesn't affect what is the price at which this is sold. Okay, that is not an issue. Okay, now did you say you don't have your script yet?
No, I don't know.
I will. I'll take a look regarding your I'll take a look regarding your student number. Okay, I've noted your name, but I'll check after class. Okay.
Thank you. And then just one last thing. If you say you compare the opening and closing balances, does that also refer to accuracy or not?
Come again.
If you say you look at your opening and closing balances.
Opening and closing balances. Does revenue have an opening balance? Because remember, when you're talking about opening balances, we're talking about opening. Yeah. So it doesn't have an opening balance.
Yes.
If you look here, if you look at our general procedures, we say agree opening balance, opening account balances, closing
account balances,
not forecasts of transactions. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And yeah, I will check up on your script. You are all supposed to have your. Did you say? I'm sorry, Lynette. Did you say you don't have a script, or did you say you don't have your mark?
I have my mark, but I don't have the script, so I can't.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. It's the issue of the debug error. Okay. Then yeah. Then I will look after the class. So like I said in the announcement, that will happen for a select few of you. Unfortunately, yeah, there's been some system related issues. So even though all the marks are released, we are not, for some students, you may not see your script. So in that case, we will provide your script to you. All right, let's see if there were more questions. Okay, wow, there's a lot. Siraj, you can go ahead.
Morning. I just wanted to find out, for the credit note, you said we should agree to the sales invoice. But what if we had to say, like, we agree to the sales invoice, but we also agree to a delivery note? Because isn't it maybe a misstatement? Because what if the person is issued a credit note just to reduce our profits, but the risk and rewards was already transferred, which we will be able to find on our delivery note or on a timesheet or something?
Yeah, but how does that affect the accuracy of the amount, right? Remember, we're not dealing with full assertions here. You're just dealing with accuracy. You want to know that the 340,000 is actually 340,000. So you'd go into the original invoice, and the original invoice was then reflecting of the 340,000, or if the amount that was returned is 340,000. But you are agreeing the amount. Okay, you're not addressing all assertions.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, you can go ahead, Bongani. Bongani, you can go ahead. Yeah, okay, maybe you have a problem, Bongani. You can go ahead, Joseph.
Good morning, everyone. My question is that when do we then apply the how, what, and why? Do we apply them on all the procedures, or we only apply them on business procedures?
Okay, thanks for that. The how and the what and the why is how we teach you to structure a substantive procedure, right? If you are agreeing an invoice to the general ledger, okay, that doesn't require a why. That already tells us why. You're agreeing them because they must agree to each other, okay? The why becomes most important in lesson 10 when you're dealing with other considerations. You must tell us why you are addressing the assertions. You must tell us that you're inspecting the CV to address the capability. You must tell us that you are inspecting a document to address the objectivity. You must tell us you're inspecting a document to address the independence. So it becomes extremely important in lesson 10. But for lesson 8 and lesson 9, it's not important to include the why in your answer. And even if you look at our memorandums, when it comes to lesson 8 and lesson 9, we don't include the why in our answers. It's the other considerations where you see us stressing on the why. Okay. Vuyokazi, did you have another question?
Yes, hi, sir. When you were
Hi.
speaking earlier about opening balances and you showed us that you can only speak about comparing opening and closing balances for account balances, I was wondering for this scenario, they do tell us that this schedule of transactions is for April, and they gave us at the top saying that it's the total carried from the 31st of March. So, because in the scenario, it's telling us that they do carry totals, could we speak about comparing those totals and agreeing the total carried from the 31st of March to the balance at the end of the schedule?
Well, good question. Love that question.
Thank you.
But no, remember, you auditing revenue for the year. Okay, so the way in which you are obtaining the schedule of transactions for the year, and you're sampling those transactions. So you're saying, for example, of the bill, this is what you do. For example, of the manufactured per contract for the year, this is what you do. For a sample of maintenance for the year, this is what you do. So you're still auditing for the year, but you're just basing it on the type of transactions that occur during the year. So you can't be auditing revenue month by month. You're auditing revenue for the year. And the way you address there's, all of this here, this opening balance, is by sampling. Okay, you sample throughout the year. So that's why there is a mark in the solution. If you look at the solution, there's a mark for just saying you're going to sample revenue for the year. Okay, and very important, you're not going to talk to us about selection. You must sample. That's the word we've taught you. You must sample the revenue. So we're addressing revenue for the year, and we are sampling for the year. Also, if you look at the headings, okay, we're not saying you're auditing 95 and 19. You are, because that's what you've been given in the scenario. But these are just examples of the transactions that happen throughout the year. So we've said, this is an example. You're doing the 19 million, 95,000. What would you do in respect of each of those types of transactions?
Okay, that makes sense.
Great.
Thank you.
Hi, sir. It's Bongani. I also wanted to ask that question in terms of if you didn't specify the amount, but you wrote like obtain the price policy for Robo to confirm the price list and the rates used if they are correct on the invoice. If that then you in brackets you put just testing the completeness and accuracy. If you're getting a mark for that.
There's no completeness here, just accuracy. But I hear your question. Here's the answer to your question. Okay?
Because I didn't get also my marks in the script. I didn't get the marks in the script, but I did send emails.
Yes. Okay. So so you got your mark, you didn't get your script. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't get my marks. I didn't get my script.
Oh no. You should have your marks. Okay. Let me just note that down. Excuse me. Okay. So I'll have a look at that right after class. With regards to your question, okay, it's best to put the amount so that we know what you're dealing with. Okay, when you just talk about invoices, our invoice relates to April the 5th, and our invoice also relates to what else was the invoice? What set prices? Okay, your invoice actually only relates to April the 5th. So if you are talking about invoices, if you're addressing that, okay, you would be receiving that mark. However, if you're talking about a contract, for example, the contract relates to April the 10th and relates to April the 25th. So we might not know which one are you trying to address, okay? So as long as for us it's clear what you're trying to address, you would get your mark, okay? If you do write these amounts, it helps us to know, it helps the examiner or the marker know that you are dealing with this specific part. Okay? It's also part of applying yourself. Try and use the actual amounts that you've been given in the scenario. Use the scenario to help you. It's designed to help you pass. So use it. Yeah. Okay. And I will have a look then at why you may not have your mark yet. You can go ahead, Bonso.
Hi, sir. My first question is I wanted to ask if you compare the quantity on the quantities on the invoice with the quantities on the order forms, would that be incorrect, or does it have to specifically be with the delivery note?
Yeah, it has to be with the delivery note because you need to know that that's what was delivered. Remember, what you order and what you receive as the customer may not be the same. Orders also get changed in between. You can also have that the entire, order may not be available, that it maybe gets reduced because not all stock is available. So the order form is not the best one to agree to. You must agree it to the delivery note.
All right, thank you. And my second question is, what about testing the logic of the invoice? Is that part of accuracy, or is it another assertion?
The logic of the invoice, the logic of the invoice, right? If the logic that you are testing relates to accuracy, okay, we would give you that mark, but most of the time testing of the logic might relate to occurrence. So if you give us a valid example, you see, it wasn't part of the memo. If you give us a valid example, we would mark it, but no, there was no mark for logic in this scenario.
Okay. I think I have another question. I just want to look at my paper. Okay. What about? Okay, I know this one might be wrong. I just want to know which assertion it might be. So, if you are testing that the invoice is a valid invoice, like valid text numbers, what assertion would that be?
If you are testing what?
If the invoice is a valid invoice, like if it has like the name of the customer and the name of the company, and also if it has a valid text number, what assertion would that be?
Okay, so you are then talking about occurrence, but just remember, most of the time, right, we're concerned with amounts, descriptions, and dates. Okay, that's what we're concerned with most of the time. Things that are going to have an effect on the GL, because your dates affect when something's going to be entered into the GL. Your descriptions may affect where in the GL it is posted to. And obviously your amounts are going to affect the amounts that go into the GL. So for the most part, those are the things that an auditor is interested in, okay, you hardly going to be going to check the VAT number of maybe a client, VAT number of someone who is ordering, or the delivery address of someone who's ordering, because those things don't have an impact on what's going into the GL. We are external auditors. We're focused on financial statements. Therefore, we're concerned with everything that gets recorded that affects the financial statements. So just have that in mind, that your end goal is financial statements. Anything that affects the financial statements is what you are looking at. So if it has no effect on the financial statements, then it's not an external auditor's role. It's probably more internal audit.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, I'm a bit confused on this one. So when I did the questions, I could see that on some of the memos, casting and recalculating is 2 marks, and sometimes it's 1 mark. I just need clarification on that. In what instance is it 2 marks? In what instance is it the same mark?
Okay, so you had recalculate a lot of times in this question, so it was a lot of marks in this question. Costing and recalculating are the same thing, right? It's just when you recalculate, you might be recalculating based on the inputs. Like I said, A times B equals C, so the inputs are A times B. So then if you're recalculating the 95,000, you also need to agree what makes up the 99,000, the A times B part. So essentially, whether you write cost or whether you write recalculate, we are happy with either or, okay? You will see recalculate come up a lot of times on this question. You're supposed to recalculate basically all these amounts. So the answer to your question is there's no difference. Recalculate and costing are the same thing. It can be more marks because there are more things to recalculate.
Okay, thank you.
And sometimes it's very sad to see how many marks here just related to general procedures. A lot of marks here just related to general procedures. So if you had only studied activity 8.1.1, which is the general procedures, if that is all that you knew when you walked into this paper, you should still have gotten 25% at least, because that's how many marks related to general procedures. Okay, guys, there seems to be a lot of questions on this. We are going to have to move on because this is question 2. So I'm only going to take everyone who has their hand up now. Raisa, you can go ahead.
Morning.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, okay, maybe also a few, but I'll try and keep it shorter. So if you had an answer that says agree the total of the revenue in the income statement to the total in the schedule, that I got marked correct. And then in a few other.
Wait, repeat that again.
So in this question, I've got agree the total of the revenue in the income statements to the total in the schedules prepared. So that was marked correctly because I think it was regarding the total of revenue.
Yeah, so just hang on just a second. Just you are agreeing the total of the schedule, which is a 445 million, and you want to agree to TB, GL, and Fs, right? So you you're saying agree to the income statement, but just know you're agreeing to TB, GL, and Fs. That's what you're doing.
Okay. So if I have to answer it a bit more specifically, for example, and say agree the totals, just hold on, let me get an example. Yeah, so if I go a little bit further and say agree the total in the general ledger to the sales transactions for local sales to SA retailers, is that the same thing?
Oh, okay. agree the total in the general ledger. The total is 445 million.
Is that for both local and exported sales?
The total, the revenue amount is 445 million. So when you say agree the total, you're saying agree 445 million to invoices.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so I
just
think
you must be dealing with the individual items to agree them, right?
yeah, so I think what I'm actually just checking is that, so because we've got background information regarding how they receive their revenue, with regards to like to SA retailers and to foreign retailers, would that be regarded as a correct answer if you are referring to the exported sales as well, or do we only focus on this particular schedule that we have in the paper? Because we have background information, I thought it would be relevant to reference that as well with regard to revenue.
What do you want to do in order to test the accuracy of revenue with the background information?
So if you would say that, like, for example, if you obtain a sample of like labels, for example, because you have to have a label for exported goods, and then on there would have to have like weights and stuff for your customs and stuff like that. So that would all be part of your invoice. So would that be incorrect in referring to something like that, or is it only focused mainly on what's given in the paper with regards to, like, for example, the schedule?
Yeah, but you need to focus on accuracy of revenue. So I want you to tell me, what are you saying you want to recalculate? What are you saying you want to agree as being the input into your value? That's what we're focusing on. So what do you want to recalculate based on the background?
Okay, so I'll just give an example of what I have for one of them. If I said obtain a sample of invoices for exported sales and agree the amounts to the general ledger.
Okay, how are you addressing? Okay, so you will already have agreed the 445 million to the general ledger. Okay, that's part of your general procedures. Yeah, so now it seems like you are then just duplicating the procedure. You're just doing it at an individual level now. So instead of saying agree 445 to TB, GL&Fs, you're now saying agree 85,000 to TB, GL&Fs, agree 19 million to TB, GL&Fs, agree 95,000 to TB. You don't need to do that at that individual level because you've already done it at a total level.
Also, just repeating the same thing.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't really use the background information as much as you would the actual schedule.
No, the background information does help. Okay. And remember, you were addressing accuracy of the revenue. Yeah. And you are using the scenario to help you answer. So I'm always going to say you must use the scenario. Okay. There was no mention of labels in the scenario. So you can't be mentioning the labels because it's not from the scenario. Okay. Yes, I'm telling you that you're importing, you're exporting, but we've told you how the revenue works. We've told you that for the toys, the robots that are manufactured that go out to the US, we've told you that there's contracts for that. Okay, so that's your prime, because you were told that's the source document. That's what you must use.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. So really, you want to be basing your answers on the scenario that you're given. The answers about exporting and forex rates and all of that, that is definitely not applicable in the scenario because you're told there's contracts. So your amounts would be as per the contract. When you are selling to someone in another country, you quote it in your currency. Okay. If you're buying from someone in America, they will quote you in dollars. You're buying from someone in the UK, they will quote you in pounds. If someone from America is buying from us, we quote them in rands, guys. Okay. Someone is buying from ShopRite, they're not suddenly buying, $10. No, they're still buying in rands. Okay. Petule, you are the last person. Question 2. Go ahead. Question 3.
Oh, good morning, sir. I would like to find out what do I need to apply correctly to answer this question correctly, because on my side I've written about these answers. I got it wrong. I said to obtain a signed written representation from management for the revenue transaction that occurred during the year, and I also mentioned something like
accuracy of revenue.
Yes.
Read it again.
Oh, I said I obtained a signed written representation from management for the revenue transaction that occurred during the year. And
but that's not
accuracy.
Okay. You must say accuracy. Remember, the written representation, the nice thing about a written representation is that part does not need the scenario. That only needs the required. So we said test of details is the accuracy of revenue. So your written representation must be addressing accuracy of revenue. Okay. Same thing for here. We said formulate test of details to verify the journal entry for accrued warehouse insurance proceeds. So here we don't give you any assertions. So here it must be for all assertions. That's very important. You must say for all assertions. Okay. It's based on the required one. So you don't even have to go to the scenario to be able to give it to us, but you must tell us that it's for accuracy of revenue. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. We are moving on to question 4. Okay. Question 4 said to us, formulate the test of details required to verify the journal entry for the accrued warehouse insurance proceeds of 30 million. Okay. Excuse me. It's 9 marks. It is a substantive procedure question. Therefore, we refer to our frameworks. Our frameworks are either 1, general procedures, business procedures, and other considerations, or 2, DAD principles. Those are our frameworks. That's what's going to help us get to all our marks. We've read it once, we know what is required. We now read it again for the second time. We read it with more meaning now. So formulate the test of details, like we've said before. Now, because we say test of details, means analyticals are not applicable. Required to verify the journal entry for the accrued warehouse insurance proceeds. So you'll see that in the scenario, in this question, it's a journal entry here that you are dealing with. Yeah. It's a journal entry, and you want to know that that journal entry is a valid journal entry. So you're going to do procedures to see that that journal entry is a valid journal entry. It's a journal entry of 30 million. Yeah. Accrued warehouse insurance proceeds. An accrual forms part of trade and other receivables. Okay? That is an asset. We know from our dog-perv principles that with an asset, we are testing for overstatement, and our primary assertions are existence, rights, and accuracy, valuation, allocation. So that's where we're going to focus our procedures. We're going to focus our procedures around accuracy, valuation, allocation. We're going to focus our procedures around rights. We're going to focus our procedures around existence. Yeah. We're now going to go to the scenario. You are told that included in trade and other receivables of 75 million is an insurance proceeds amount. At the top there's our 75 million. It's part of trade and other receivables. Like we said, asset, dog-perv principles apply. and we don't know how much yet of that 75 million. What we already know now is that we are not auditing an entire account balance here, because you are told it forms part of the 75 million. So here, we're not auditing the entire account balance. Okay, we're not auditing entire account balance, we're only auditing the journal entry part. Currently, our payables of 25 million is the insurance proceeds amount. On 15 April, a fire broke out at Robo's warehouse. No personnel were hurt, but there was significant damage. Warehouse to finished goods and to materials. So PPE and inventory damaged. The warehouse was insured. Okay, so obviously if you see insured, if you're insured, there must be an insurance contract, because we're highlighting now all our source documents. And the insurer is committed to finalizing the insurance claim. Oh, now there's a claim, that can be another source document. And insurance proceeds pay out within 6 months. If there is a payout, then we know that it would be on the bank statement. That can also be a source document. Within 6 months of the incident date, the company lawyer acted swiftly in interpreting the terms of the insurance contract. I already knew there was a contract, but again, filing the claim incident report. Ooh, there's another one. It's an official report by an insurer detailing value of damages. Filing the incident claim report to the insurer and communicating with the insurer. Oh, there's communications now. Why is it doing this to me? Communications. Okay, so that's what? Correspondence. That's source documents regarding the processing of the claim. Based on the insurance contract, oh, we didn't need to be told this, but now we are told there's an insurance contract. Even if this wasn't there, we would have known that there's an insurance contract, because we've seen, based on the scenario, we know that source document exists. Based on the insurance contract and correspondence with the insurer, again, we're still telling you there's correspondence, even though you know there's been communications and you know there's correspondence. We've now told you again about the source document. Based on the insurance contract and correspondence with the insurer, the company has concluded that this is a valid claim and anticipates no dispute from the insurer. However, the insurer has not finalized the proceeds amount to be paid out, and therefore an estimate must be accrued for in the financial statement. Now, at this point, alarm bells must be going off, okay? Because expert, immediately you know lesson 10 procedures are now applicable, because you have an expert. Okay, estimate. We read estimate here. Estimate. So lesson 10, immediately as soon as you see estimate, you know lesson 10 procedures are applicable. Therefore, an estimate must be accrued for in the financial statements. Robo used an external property expert. So now you have two things. You have an estimate and you have an expert regarding lesson 10, okay, for the valuation of the warehouse damages and the calculations of the amount required to repair. So calculations, okay, that's obviously source document for the amount required to prepare the warehouse. The calculations, highlight it again, were reported in a property valuation report, source document, and amounted to 30 million. Inventory damages were 41 million, resulting in an expected insurance proceeds payout. Just if it's paid out, there'll be a bank statement. This would be the best estimate, again, of the insurance proceeds payout that will be received from the insurer. The payout is expected to be received after the financial statements are issued. So yeah, we may not be able to tie to bank statements after all. So based on the question, The yellows is then where all the source documents are, and then the reds is where you have something to apply in terms of lesson 10. Okay. The following journal entry, amongst others, has been recorded to accrue for the warehouse insurance proceeds. The question said warehouse insurance proceeds. So this is then our journal entry. Accrued income from insurance proceeds, 30 million. Narration is recording of warehouse insurance proceeds, accrual estimate based on the property valuation report. Wait. Here's a source document. Okay. So now, if we go back to the question is 9 marks, right? And if you're wondering where some of your 9 marks are going to come from, if you think, oh, is there things I can recalculate? General procedures can I apply? Obtaining written representation, can I apply some? Yes, there's general procedures. Are there specific procedures that you can apply with regards to the receivables business process? Agreeing to invoices. Normally with receivables, you might say confirmation, but reading from the scenario, you might not get a confirmation because the claim is still being processed. So you might not get a confirmation of the amount, but in this case, there's been correspondence which can substitute for the confirmation. And then other considerations, there's an expert, there's an estimate. So you can see that it's actually very easy to get to this 9 marks. It's almost too easy. This question could have been just as easily 15 marks, just like question 3, rather than just 9 marks. From the marking, a lot of students got full marks for this question because there were so many areas for you to go and get your marks. Okay, so we've highlighted our source documents. Try and use all your source documents, please. Okay, like we said, we're going to focus. It is an asset being here, so we're going to focus around existence, rights, accuracy, valuation, allocation. So with regards to existence and rights, this is an insurance proceed accrual. Okay, so we only have a right to this amount if, in terms of the insurance contract, it says we have a right to this amount. So we need to go and find that insurance contract. We need to find out, was the warehouse included in the contract? Was a fire included in the contract? Because that's what's happened. That's the incident that's happened. So that will give us the right to the 30 million. We need to go and do procedures around that contract. The most important one of there's 2 important documents here. It's the insurance contract, because that's what it's based on. And then when it comes to accuracy, valuation, allocation, when we want to find out the inputs that make up the 30 million, we now have to go to the property valuation report. Okay, that's your second important document. And there we're going to be recalculating what the expert has calculated, and we need to know that the expert has calculated the amount correctly. And for that, we're going into our lesson 10 procedures, where we deal with methods, assumptions, and data, and we also deal with procedures around the expert themselves. Okay. We've had the class, it was that Mandela class around experts, and we said you are dealing with what is the expert's objectivity or independence, what is their competence, and what is their capability. Very important. You must be inspecting something for it to be a substantive procedure, guys. I got so sad, in moderating some of the scripts, I came across a script where the student mentioned every single correct concept, but every single thing was wrong. So they started off with their general procedure, start by saying obtain a written representation. That's not enough. You must say accuracy of revenue. You must say for the accrued income, and you must say for all assertions. So just obtain a written representation is not enough. Next, recalculate. That's not enough. You must say, what are you recalculating? Then they went into the expert now, and they said, test that the expert is competent, test that the expert is objective, test that the expert is capable. Those are 3 correct things to test, but you haven't even inspected anything. It's not like you've inspected their CV, not like you've inspected their qualifications, you've inspected nothing. So you're dealing 100%, you're dealing with the correct things. You haven't made it a substantive procedure. So none of that was correct. Then they dealt with experts, which is the methods, the assumptions, and the data. But again, they inspected 0 supporting documents. They used none of the supporting, all this yellow that's been highlighted. They used none of it. They said, test that the method is correct, test that the assumptions are correct, test that the data is correct. So the entire answer of the student is all correct concepts tied to 0 source documents. Therefore, no marks could even be given. That's very sad to see. Very, very sad to see, because that students studied, but they didn't know how to apply themselves to the scenario. Okay. With regards to the methods, assumptions, and data, what did the expert use as part of the method evaluation? What assumptions could they have used? We didn't give you any assumptions in the scenario, so we awarded you that mark as a theoretical mark. If you told us you will test assumptions, I think that's actually the only mark that student actually got. And then if you gave a valid example of assumption and how you would test it, you were given an additional mark as well. And then obviously you must also test that the data that it relates to as well. So you can see that there are quite a lot of marks to be earned with regards to this question. So you should be getting full marks for this question. There's quite a lot of students who got full marks for this question. This question was also very similar to the test prep class question. So there really shouldn't have been too many issues with this question. Any questions on question 4? Questions on question 4? Okay, I think that is probably because, like I said, there were quite a lot of marks available for this question. Any which way you approached it, even if you just used your DAD principles, dealing with, there's no dates given in the scenario, so you can't deal with dates, but dealing with amounts, how amounts made up, where did the amounts come from, who calculated these amounts? You would have gotten at least a pass, even with your DAD principles alone. Okay, let's go to question 5. Okay. Question 5 said, formulate the test of details required to verify the journal entry of 41 million for the write-off of inventory. That's us reading it the first time. Now we're going to read it for a second time with more meaning. Formulate the test of details, again, test of details, so therefore no analytical procedures required to verify the journal entry of 41 million for the write-off of inventory. Okay. The substantive procedure question, therefore, are frameworks that we know apply, general procedures, business process procedures, and other considerations, and or then DAD principles. Okay. That's what we use to answer any substantive procedure question where we're required to formulate substantive procedures by applying ourselves. So now we know it's 8 marks. We're gonna go, we know that there will be general procedures that could be applicable here. We know about the inventory business process, and then we need to check whether there's any estimate or expert or related parties involved with regards to the write-off of inventory. So let's go check. Foreign journal entry was recorded for the insurance proceeds. Then here's the inventory. A post-buyer inventory count was performed as soon as it was safe to re-enter the burnt warehouse. Okay. If you think of an inventory count, you will have count documents, right? Count sheets, inventory count sheets. There's a source document attached to that. The journal entry, amongst others, has been recorded to write off inventory damaged during fire. You've damaged inventory, 41 million. Debit write-off, credit inventory narration, recording of inventory based on the cost price of the inventory damaged during the fire incident. So nothing special here. They didn't use an expert, not required. They didn't use an estimate. It's just based on cost price. There's no related parties. So obviously, lesson 10 is not applicable for this answer. That only leaves lesson 8 and lesson 9 procedures. You are already told that this is based on the inventory count, and it's based on the cost price of the inventory that's damaged. So your answers are going to be centered around that, right? Now, something interesting here, right? If you think of inventory, it's an asset. So you normally, dog-perf principles apply because it's an asset. Here in this entry, we are crediting the assets. We're not debiting the asset, right? We are crediting the asset. When normally the issue with assets is that you are recording, you are debiting them, and you are therefore testing them for overstatement because you're debit, they are debit balances. Dog-perf, debit balances, overstatement. But here we're crediting inventory. So it's actually working the other way around because we're creating the inventory. We're not debiting the inventory. That would be contributing to, overstatement. That's what we test for. But now we're crediting the inventory. So it's actually now the other way around, right? So we're more concerned if this write-off should maybe be higher, okay? Because to overstate inventory, you would then have a lower write-off. Okay? So it's actually the other way around for this one. We're actually concerned with understatement more, and we want to have procedures addressing completeness. You want to have procedures addressing accuracy, evaluation, and allocation. Your other assertions are still important, but the focus, you want to focus on the accuracy, evaluation, allocation. And then you have to be addressing completeness as well, because now this is a credit to an asset. So you will see that we address the completeness by inquiry regarding whether all the damages to the inventory were taken into account. So we address it basically with the inquiry, but you must address the issue of completeness. Okay, with regards to the accuracy, evaluation, allocation, you have the count sheets there. You must obviously use your count sheets to see that the quantities are what they are. In this case, it's that scenario that we've talked about where it's A times B equals C. A being the quantity, B being the cost price, equals C, which is the write-off value. So we are going to recalculate C, which is the write-off value of 41 million. We then have to agree A and B to supporting documents. So A, which is quantity, can be agreed to the inventory count sheets. B, which is the cost price, can be agreed to the cost price of the actual inventory invoices, things like that. And then you obviously also have your general procedures. So that's what we expected of you from question 3. In students' answers to this question, they did get a bit confused. Students seem to think that the experts and the estimates were still applicable in this question, whereas, in reading the narration, you would have seen that there is no expert here. There is no estimate here. There was a post-fire inventory count. There's no estimate. So students did get confused a bit between this and the warehouse proceeds. So there was a lot of focus here on the expert, which was incorrect. There was also a lot of focus on the insurance contract. Remember, whether the insurance contract was there or not, you would still have had this write-off. So it wasn't related to the insurance contract. So there was a confusion from students that I didn't know what was based on. Maybe some of you can help me, but there was a confusion from students as to what this related to in relation to expert, estimate, and contract. And I didn't understand why I was seeing so many answers related to that. The scenario was clear as to what the 41 million was based on. So you must listen to the scenario, follow the scenario. Okay, any questions on this? Because I imagine there'll be quite a few questions, because like I said, the answers were reflecting answers that were expected for the warehouse proceeds rather than the answers that were expected for inventory. You can unmute yourself, Mapule. Mapule, you can unmute. Excuse me. Vuyokazi, you can unmute.
Hi, sir. This is with regards to how you tell us we must say we're going to recalculate using A times B equals C. When we applying that, I'm just double checking. We obviously have to state what A is and what B is in the scenario.
No, you're recalculating C. So basically, you need to restate that. You need to tell us that you're calculating C. The write-off of damaged inventory, that is then 41 million. So you're calculating the write-off amount of 41 million. That's all you just need to state. You don't need to state A, B. A and B, you need to agree to supporting documentation, because that's the inputs that relate to C.
Okay, yes, thank you, sir. And then my second question is, so with regards now to the inputs, I've said inspect a sample of counting sheets and agree the number of units needing to be written off to the actual number of units that were written off to ensure the accuracy of the amount. Is that fine?
That is fine.
Yeah,
That
I didn't
is
get
fine.
a mark for that one.
That is fine. You want the, I think the interpretation could have been, we were looking for the inventory quantity, okay? But even if you didn't say that inventory, you're directly dealing with the number with the actual quantity. So even if you didn't use the word quantity, so that is fine, okay?
Okay, so should I apply for a remark?
Yes, in that case, you must apply for a remark.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Great. Let's see. Joseph, you can unmute. Joseph Mtombeni, you can unmute. Do you want to try again, Mapule? Do you want to try and mute? Okay. If at any point you guys are able to unmute, you can just, there we go. Yes, Joseph.
Okay, sir. I'm
Go ahead.
checking on my screen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now hear you. Just repeat what you said. You just repeat what you said. What did you say? Huh? Joseph, you can send an email. I heard something about it. So maybe there's an email.
Checking.
Yeah, I think your line is quite bad, Joseph. I'm not able to hear you properly unless it's my internet, but I'm not able to hear you properly. Send an email. You can send an email to the Mergel mailbox. Thanks. Do you want to try unmute? Seems like you're the last person on question 4. If you can unmute later on, you can, and just come in. Okay. 5 minutes left. How does time fly so fast when you're having so much fun? Okay, share capital. You were told shares were issued during the year, and the required said to you, describe the test of details you performed to test the occurrence of shares issued during the year. You're not testing the balance here. If it was a balance, it would have been then an account balance, and then it would have been existence. You're being asked to test the movement here, which is the shares issued. So the movement, just like with the movement for PPE, additions to PPE and disposals to PPE, those are classes of transactions. So that's why it is occurrence that we are testing in respect of shares issued. Now, it is we have a framework here, okay? You're being asked to perform test of details, so it is a framework based. So yes, there might be some general procedures that are applicable. There's definitely business process procedures. In this question, it is your business process procedures that are going to be the most marks. And then with regards to other considerations, you've just seen there in the scenario. There's no expert, there's no related party, there's no estimate, there's nothing in relation to lesson 10. So most of your procedures here are coming from lesson 9. Now, there's nothing here for you to really apply yourself to, okay? Because it's just 2.5 million. It's a very different story if we'd given you a whole scenario about how the 2.5 million came about, what happened, blah, blah. There's none of that, okay? So this is a nice, quick question for you to do. Not too much application required. It's basically testing your knowledge of lesson 9, right? Yes, some general procedures are applicable, not a lot, because also we're only dealing with occurrence. The main thing that came out of here was your business process procedures. When you're dealing with shares issued, there are statutory elements that you must deal with, things like your board resolutions, your share registers. Those statutory elements are very, very important. And that's basically what was being tested here, your business 9 procedures. It's nothing new. There's nothing really special. There's no long long explanations on the scenario. Nothing that would trip up your application. So in this type of question, you either did well because you've studied and you know what your requirements are in respect of shares issued, or you didn't know, okay? There's not too many marks coming from general procedures, not 0 marks coming from lesson 10. So this is a really simple question. You probably either knew it or you didn't. I did ask students to give me feedback. Remember in the test prep class, I asked for students to provide feedback after writing the test. And some of you, most of you all forgot, but there were 1 or 2 students who did email, and they said that this question was a little bit of a surprise for them, and they, hadn't prepared for this lesson. Don't know why, but in terms of the answers of the students, this was a fairly okay, nothing, not too great, not too bad, fairly okay, averagely answered question. Okay, we are now at 10 o'clock. Okay, so I'm not gonna dwell too much, but I do want to cover then question 1 and question 7. Okay, so I'm gonna apologize for going over time, but I do then want to cover question 7. Obviously, if you have to go, you're very welcome. And I'm just gonna then cover them very, very quickly. Are there any questions on question 6 before I cover question 1 and 7? Okay, yeah, I wasn't expecting too many questions. It was a really forward and straight, simple type of question. So I'm going to do question 1 and question 7 very quickly. Okay. Question 1 was a mouthful. Again, identify 2 risks of material misstatement at financial statement level due to error. Based on the extracts from the audit planning work papers, points 2 and 3, and assess the 2 risks individually based on magnitude, likelihood, and conclude on the spectrum of inherent risk. Okay, that's now reading it the first time. It's a mouthful, it's a lot. And there's a lot of instructions within instructions in this question. So this is one where you might need to read a second or even a third time to ensure that you are following the instruction. There were still students that were not following all instructions here. And if you miss an instruction, now you're missing marks. So when you read it the second time with more meaning, we're reading, identify 2 risks. So immediately you go to your paper, and if you're a person that writes maybe in big writing, you might write on the first page risk 1 and on the second page risk 2, so that you don't forget. If you're a person that writes normally, it's not, then you might write risk 1 at the start of the page and then risk 2 in the middle of the page. But either way, that helps you that you don't forget to write 2 risks, because we did see answers where students did not give us 2 risks. Some of them just gave us 1 risk and tried to merge ideas into 1 risk. And obviously, that's not a logical argument. So 2 risks of material misstatement at financial statement level. We also had students that either did not read this correctly in terms of exam technique and gave us risk at assertion level. Okay, as soon as you start talking about inventory, now you're at assertion level. As soon as you start talking about, calculations of the spot rates and whatever, now you're at assertion level. Okay, we said financial statement level. We want to know the risks that affect the financial statements as a whole. Whenever there's an issue with the attitude or the integrity of management, that can affect the financial statements as a whole, because then they could misstate assets, they could misstate liabilities, they could misstate income, they could misstate expenses. So we're looking at risks that affect the financial statements as a whole. That's financial statement level, not assertion level. Not, what affects receivables? What affects inventory? That's assertion level. And they say due to error. Okay, so not fraud, but error. So in the 2 risks, you were supposed to identify issues related to error. And we did have students still referring to fraud for both risks. Based on the extracts of the audit planning work papers, points 2 and 3. And if I was you at this point, this is where I would have gone to highlight points 2 and 3. Okay, because now you have been, let's use a different color for this. I hope you can still see if it's like that. So points 2 and 3. So not things that are arising from a previous, here, things that are arising from here, 2 and 3. That's what we expected to see. And assess the two risks individually based on magnitude, likelihood, and conclude on the spectrum of inherent risk. So your headings, we've already told you what your headings must be. First of all, risk, you must assess the risk. You must say magnitude, what is the magnitude? High, medium, low, reason. Likelihood, is it high, medium, low, reason? Where on the spectrum does it lie? Is it on the upper end? Is it on the lower end? That's all we needed you to do in this question. And so we still had students that the structure just did not make sense. With students that would give us a risk and then immediately conclude on the risk. With students that would give us a risk, write such long stories about the risk that do not deal with the magnitude or likelihood. They're just restating the scenario again, and then at the end conclude, but they've not dealt with magnitude and likelihood. Therefore, you couldn't possibly tell us whether it's on the upper end, on the lower end. This question was the way in which the answers came for this question were either full marks or lower, low marks, like less than 5. Seldom were students getting just like 7s and 8s. It was either full marks or lower than 5, because if you followed what was required, if you gave us a risk and if you said magnitude, likelihood, and concluded, and you had the right levels for those, you were getting all your marks. Okay, like I said, I'm going to go this pretty quickly. You were told, so I'm going to summarize. You were told that there's import tariffs that are now being imposed by Donald Trump. And as a result, US clients can no longer afford the robots. Furthermore, the US clients have felt like there is a general weakened sentiment against South Africa because of Donald Trump's opinions on South Africa. So they're no longer going to be able to afford to buy from you. And also they've noticed that, doing business in South Africa is not, seen as a good thing by the US president. So as a result, you are definitely going to have issues with, is the business going to still be here next year? Okay? We know that 90% of the revenue arises from the export to America. We know that the company is very sensitive to changes in the US environment. So the risk that we expected you to identify here is the fact that the going concern assumption may not be appropriate. Okay? That was the main risk that was arising from this, given all the information that you've been given in this paragraph. That's what we expected you to identify. Okay. Now, there's enough information for you to see that magnitude is high, likelihood is high, and therefore you're on the upper end of the spectrum of inherent risk. Related party transaction. Okay, we basically gave you the answer in the heading. We already said related parties, and with regards to related parties, you have two main risks. Number one, has it been disclosed correctly? Are the related party transactions disclosed? And two, are the related party transactions at arm's length? We gave you the results of risk assessment procedures, and they were very clear. Okay, there was not much risk involved with this 250,000. So we expected you to have low magnitude, low likelihood, and lower end of the spectrum of inherent risk. There really wasn't much to this question. Like I said, students either got full marks or they got below 5. You knew ahead of time that lesson 3 was going to be tested. So yeah, full marks should have been where, everybody was sitting. The mark plan is quite generous as well on this question. I'm going to go to question 7, and only then, will I take some final questions before we close. Question 7 said, based on circumstances of the employment offer, describe ethical considerations for the SAICA code from your perspective as a third-year audit trainee. Yeah. You're not required to deal with considerations from the partner or any other members of the audit team. So you're a third-year audit trainee. You were told that you've passed your qualifying exams, that you're going to register as a CA as of the beginning of the following year. And you're asked, so we've read it, now we're going to read it a second time with meaning. Based on the circumstances of the employment offer, then you're only going to concentrate on that paragraph of the employment offer. Describe your ethical considerations. I know even when I studied, I used to hate the word considerations because what must I consider? What does consider mean? I don't know. These type of questions are in your question bank. Okay, so you were prepared for based on your question bank. When it comes to ethical considerations in the SAICA code, we want you to deal with threats. We want you to deal with fundamental principles. We want you to deal with any safeguards that you can apply. Okay, so unless we tell you don't deal with the safeguards, or unless we say limit your answer to the threats or limit your answer only to the fundamental principles, if you don't see any of those limitations, you must deal then with all of that. And it's for 5 marks. Okay, employment offer. And also you would have seen in all our questions, the starting point for ethics is always the same. You must first prove that the SAICA CPC applies. Okay? You are a trainee, you're a SAICA trainee, right? You've signed a training contract, and therefore that is why you are bound to the SAICA code, because you signed a SAICA training contract. During the audit engagement, the CFO of Robo mentioned that they've been impressed with your diligence and your understanding of the operations. They informally offered you a position as an assistant financial manager at Robo from 1 January 2026. We're still, I think, in the middle of 2025 in the scenario. So it's from the beginning of the following year when you are eligible to register to become a CA. They offered you a position as assistant financial manager effective 1 January 2026, pending the completion of your training contract. Okay. These things happen, hey? You yourself are going to come across these type of things. A lot of times whoever you are auditing is looking for a CA, or people are leaving. This actually happens all the time. They suggested that the remuneration package would be significantly more attractive than your current trainee salary, which is always true. Okay, you're not going to be paid as much in training as what you will be when you are qualified. So yes, it will always be significantly more. And that Robo offers excellent career progression opportunities. Okay. They assured you that this offer will not influence your current audit work. I don't know how they know that, but that's what they said to you. You received this offer about a month ago during the audit, and you've kept this information to yourself while you consider whether to stay in the firm as an audit manager or join Robo. Okay, so that's the entire paragraph you're supposed to read. Now you go through your 5 threats, go through your 5 fundamental principles to see which ones may apply. And remember, you must explain them when you use them. So you don't just say self-interest, you say what makes it a self-interest threat, right? So in this scenario, yes, obviously, there's definitely a threat to your objectivity, right? You've now been offered this role at Robo with regards to, before this, okay, framework, approaching a question. When you dealing with an ethics question, remember, this was the first class that was ever had. So in that class, Anne-Marie specifically highlighted the keywords that you expected to use. Okay? When you say integrity, okay, we're not talking about integrity from the dictionary. No, that's not the integrity that you will use. So if you use the integrity as in the dictionary, you're not going to get marked right. The integrity that you must use is the integrity from the SACA code. The objectivity that you must use is objectivity from the SACA code, because that's what defines objectivity, integrity for us as accountants, not the dictionary. So some of you are always so sad with the marking of the ethics because they don't mark your answers, but that's because you don't use the correct definitions. When it comes to being objective, it's, it talks about neutrality and not being biased. So that's what objectivity means for us as CAs. Doesn't mean, you must be objective and you mustn't sway your opinion and all that. No. That's how other people talk about objectivity. That's maybe in the dictionary or somewhere else, I don't know. But for us, it's about being neutral and it's about not being biased. Those are the keywords that you must use in your answer. So when you say, when you give us your answer for objectivity, you're going to say it's not likely that you're going to remain neutral and that you won't be biased in your consideration of this opportunity, this employment offer. Okay, you must use those keywords. Must. Okay, you don't have a choice. Don't use your own words. Use the SACA code. And at marking the qualifying exams, they're very strict on this. You can't be applying definitions that you were not taught. You must use the code, definitions from the code. So yes, your objectivity is being impaired here. And that is based on a few threats, right? First of all, there's a self-interest threat. And self-interest means there's something in it for you, right? And in the scenario, you're looking for what could be in it for you as the trainee, and you have a job offer. That is clearly self-interest, right? That affects your future. That's where the self-interest lies, right? There's also a familiarity threat here. By now, them creating this opportunity and discussing with you and with you alone, they're now creating this close relationship with you. And that speaks to familiarity. Yeah? You also have an intimidation threat here. And with regards to familiarity, your keywords there, close, something that's building a close relationship. Yeah? Intimidation. Intimidation is anything that's an attempt to influence your decision, and that includes, money or any other sort of incentive that they give you. In this case, this opportunity does, does create that influence. Yeah. So anything that wants to influence your objectivity. If you're offered some type of inducement, and in this case, this offer is. In this case, this offer is doing that. Yeah. So we expect you to identify those threats, but we also expect you to explain them, because we said consideration. We must be considering them. Okay. We were quite nice. We still gave you half marks, even if you didn't provide your considerations. You still got half marks for your threats. But the question said considerations, so you should have been providing considerations. We could have also not given any marks for your just identifying them, because the question said considerations, but you were given those marks. But you must provide considerations. Follow the required. Yeah, so those are the type of things that we expected. The main issue here was objectivity, But at the end there, the scenario says you have kept this information to yourself. Okay. Now, that's not being honest and straightforward. Those are the key words for integrity. You must be honest and straightforward. So as soon as you keep this information to yourself, you're now no longer being honest and straightforward with your employer or with the partner of this engagement. Yeah, those are the keywords: honest and straightforward. Don't use other things for integrity, because that's not what's in the code. You must be honest and you must be straightforward. Yeah. So again, this was also a simple question. Most of the issues that students had here was just not explaining the threat and not explaining the fundamental principles. A lot of students, even though they still got full marks anyway, but a lot of students also forgot about safeguards. You know, in this scenario, you cannot say remove yourself from the audit. The audit partner make that decision. Remember, we said no considerations from the audit partner perspective, is from your perspective. So you can't decide which audit you on. That's not your decision, but you can then disclose to the audit partner to say, this is the what's happened, because that affects the decisions of the audit partner. So this will happen in your career, okay? Clients, even if they're not trying to be unethical, where the clients think, oh, you should join us, but don't discuss it with the audit partner, because then they might take you off the audit. These type of discussion, these things do happen. You must know how to address them in an ethical way. You don't want to end up being fired because you did a silly thing, like just keeping it to yourself. Yeah. Okay, that is then it, everybody. I will follow up on the people that raised the issue today. Thank you so much for attending. I'm wishing you all the best as you prepare for test 4. I do want to tell you that you must do all your questions, please. Please do all your questions in the question bank. That'll help you for test 4. It's gonna, I don't want to say guarantee, but if you are doing all your questions, you're most likely to pass the paper. So if you didn't pass and you're wondering, oh, what can I do? You must do all the questions, all of them. And then before the exam, we're also going to release previous exam papers. You must also do all your previous exams before you walk into the test, the exam. Thank you, everybody. There's a lecture next week. Samira will be there. I'm wishing you all the best, and I will see you as part of preparations for the exam. Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody.